When everything inside you says stop, what do? When your legs are shaking, your mind is screaming, your heart is tired from hoping, and giving up feels easier than holding on, what happens next? For most people, this is where the story ends. Not with a dramatic crash, not with a final blow, but with a slow, quiet surrender. A moment of exhaustion that becomes permanent. A decision to stop trying, to stop caring, to stop believing. But what if, in that exact moment, the moment when you felt like letting go, you didn't? What if you didn't give up? We think strength is loud. We think it's always visible. But real strength is often invisible. It happens in private, in silence. Real strength is making one more call when your hands are shaking. It's trying again after failure has bruised your pride. It's choosing hope not because the odds are in your favor, but because you refuse to believe this is how the story ends. What if that one decision to take one more step, to show up one more time, was the very thing that changes everything? We romanticize the breakthrough, the final success, the applause, the victory speech, but we forget the thousands of quiet moments that came before. The moments when no one was watching, and no one was cheering, and no one even believed in you, but you kept going anyway. The truth is, most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they quit too soon, because they didn't see results fast enough, because they let fear speak louder than faith. But what if you don't quit this time? What if you just keep going? Not recklessly, not naively, but bravely, deliberately, consistently. What if you fight smarter, rest deeper, and trust longer than you ever have before? What if the breakthrough is not a matter of destiny, but of endurance? Your breakthrough might be one decision away, one day away, one conversation, one moment, one act of courage away. But you'll never know unless you don't give up. We rarely talk about the quiet heroes of transformation, the ones who didn't make headlines, didn't go viral, didn't win the race by a landslide, but who won something even more powerful, the battle within. These are the people who refused to give up when it stopped being exciting, when the cheering faded, when the novelty wore off, and all that remained was repetition, discomfort, and the absence of proof. And yet, they kept going, not because they were certain of success, but because they made peace with the unknown and kept showing up anyway. Persistence doesn't feel powerful while you're in it. In fact, it often feels boring, invisible, unrewarded. You wake up and do the work, again and again, with no dramatic payoff. You sacrifice, adjust, recommit, and most days, no one even notices. There's no applause for staying consistent when it would be easier to quit. No standing ovation for dragging yourself forward when you feel like you're going in circles. But that's where the real change happens. Not in the peak moments, but in the accumulation of quiet, repeated effort. The world worships intensity, but consistency is what builds greatness. Intensity is doing something hard once. Consistency is doing something worthwhile over and over, especially when it's hard. Intensity burns hot and fast. Consistency burns steady and it lasts. That's what makes persistence so powerful. It builds things that last. Muscles, character, skills, trust, grit, resilience. These don't appear overnight. They're carved out over time by people who choose not to quit even when no one is watching. Think about a seed buried in the ground. 4 days, maybe weeks. There's no visible sign of life. No leaf, no sprout, no green. Just dirt, stillness, silence. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But underneath, everything is happening. Roots are forming, foundations are being laid. The seed is doing the invisible work that must be done before anything can bloom. And that's what persistence is, the root work, the unseen growth. The invisible progress that eventually breaks the surface, but only if you keep showing up. We tend to measure progress only by outcomes, by what we can see, hold, achieve. But what if progress is happening in the struggle itself? What if progress is being made every time you get back up, even if you're tired? Every time you fight through doubt, every time you choose discipline over comfort, every time you believe, if only for a second, that it's worth continuing. That, too, is progress. That is the internal breakthrough that comes long before the external one. When you feel like nothing is working, like all your effort is wasted, remember this: your effort is never wasted when it's invested in becoming. Even when the goal feels far, even when you don't see results, every bit of effort is shaping you, teaching you, strengthening you. Every failed attempt is making your hands steadier. Every small win is building momentum. Every step forward is rewriting your relationship with fear, with failure, with yourself. That is the silent power of persistence. It remakes you in ways success never could. The real question isn't can you do it? It's can you keep doing it even when it's hard, boring, lonely, or uncertain? Can you keep showing up without needing instant results to validate your effort? Can you trust the process even when you don't control the outcome? That's what separates the dreamers from the doers. That's what builds mastery. That's what creates transformation that lasts beyond the spotlight. Because what if your dream isn't asking for perfection, but for presence? What if it doesn't require you to know all the answers, only to keep asking the right questions? What if it's not a test of your talent, but of your trust? There are seasons where your only job is not to quit, not to conquer, not to outperform, just not to quit. To keep showing up, keep moving, keep learning, keep believing in something better, even when everything around you whispers otherwise. Persistence is not sexy. It's not glamorous. It won't always feel inspired, but it will get you further than talent ever could. And in the process, it will teach you who you are. Not the version of you that shows up when things are easy, but the real you. The one who rises from setbacks, the one who rewrites failure into fuel. The one who knows, if I just don't give up, everything can change. And maybe, just maybe, this season of effort, the quiet, gritty, unrecognized part, is not the before picture. Maybe it is the breakthrough. Maybe this moment right here, where you're choosing persistence over comfort, is the turning point. You just don't know it yet. Keep going, not because it's easy, not because you feel ready, but because what if this time you don't give up? There's a strange thing that happens right before the breakthrough. It feels like everything is falling apart. The resistance feels stronger. The doubts feel louder. The progress feels slower, almost invisible. And it's in these moments, the ones soaked in exhaustion and second guessing, that most people stop. They assume their effort hasn't worked. They assume it's too late, too hard, too far. But here's the truth most people never hear. The closer you are to the shift, the heavier the resistance becomes. The storm rages hardest, not because you're off course, but because you're right on the edge of something. And that edge, that's where everything changes. You think you're miles away, but in reality, you might be inches from a breakthrough. 1 hour, one decision, one act of courage from everything looking different. But here's the challenge. You can't see it while you're in it. There's no glowing sign, no clear finish line. Just a voice inside that tells you to keep going. Even when you don't know why, even when all you want is a guarantee that your effort will mean something, that your sacrifices are not in vain, that your waiting is not wasted. But what if your life is already shifting beneath the surface? What if the foundation is quietly forming under your feet? What if what you've been praying for, fighting for, building toward is already on its way, and all it needs is your presence, just a little longer? Not perfection, not a perfect plan, just persistence, just a decision not to quit yet. We tend to underestimate how much progress is happening simply because we can't see it. But just like seeds planted deep in the soil, growth doesn't need to be visible to be real. Think about all the moments when you almost quit, but didn't. All the times you showed up even when your motivation had run dry. All the times you said yes to effort when comfort would have been easier. Those choices, they weren't wasted. They were compounding, building strength, building capacity, bringing you closer to the life you want even if the results haven't arrived yet. You are not as far as you think. Just because the road feels long doesn't mean you haven't covered distance. Look back not to judge yourself, but to remind yourself. You've made it through things you once thought would break you. You've solved problems you once thought were impossible. You've survived nights that felt endless. You've risen from losses that left you breathless. That is not nothing. That is proof. Proof that you are stronger than your fear. Proof that you are still growing even on the days when all you did was survive. Proof that you are still in motion even when it feels like you're standing still. Often, what looks like no progress is actually a moment of tension just before breakthrough. Like pulling back the string of a bow, the tension builds, and for a moment, it feels like resistance. But then, release, acceleration, movement, suddenly, what felt stuck is now flying forward. That's what breakthrough can feel like, but only if you don't give up too soon. Only if you hold on through the tension. So the question becomes, can you stay in it long enough to see the momentum shift? That's where faith lives, not in pretending everything is fine, but in believing your work still matters, even when it doesn't feel like it. In trusting that your effort, your pain, your fight, it's all shaping something bigger than you can currently grasp. You are not walking in circles, you are climbing a spiral staircase. And though you may pass the same feelings, the same doubts, the same fears again and again, you are higher than you were before. You are becoming more aware, more resilient, more prepared for what's coming. And what's coming might be closer than you think. So if today feels like the day you want to quit, pause, breathe, remind yourself, it only feels hopeless because you can't see the full picture yet. Remind yourself that the tipping point is real, that compounding effort is real, that invisible growth is still growth. You are building something sacred with your effort. You are writing a story of strength with every hard day you move through, and you are closer than you know to the moment when it all begins to make sense. Keep going. Don't give up, not today. Not when you might be standing inches from your breakthrough. Not when the next step might be the one that changes everything. It's easy to feel strong when everything is going your way. When doors open effortlessly, when people believe in you, when your energy is high and the path is clear. But that's not where true strength is forged. True strength reveals itself in the silence, in the struggle, in the moments when no one claps, no one calls, no one sees what it costs you just to keep going. And yet you do. You continue, you try again. And in those moments, whether you realize it or not, you are touching something deep and unshakable inside you. Something you didn't even know was there. We all carry hidden reservoirs of strength, not the kind that shouts or shows off, but the quiet kind. The kind that stands when it's easier to collapse. The kind that fights through invisible battles no one else will ever understand. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, because it's not about applause, it's about survival. It's about growth. It's about honoring the fire that refuses to go out, even in the darkest night. You may think of yourself as tired, broken, or weak, but look closer. Think back to the hardest things you've endured, the pain, the heartbreak, the fear. You're still here, still breathing, still choosing life. That's not weakness. That's evidence of a strength so embedded in your spirit that not even pain could steal it. It's not the kind of strength they celebrate on magazine covers or in Hollywood scripts. It's the strength of someone who has every reason to quit and doesn't. There is a part of you that rises when you're pushed to the edge, that wakes up in crisis and whispers, "Not yet." Keep going. It's not loud, it's not polished, but it's fierce, it's raw. It shows up in shaky hands and tear-streaked faces and cracked voices that still speak hope. It shows up in the way you get out of bed when everything in you wants to disappear. It shows up in your small routines, your repeated efforts, your stubborn belief in something better even when you have no proof. Sometimes we don't know how strong we are until we've been broken, until life tests us beyond what we thought we could handle. Until we've hit walls, lost things, faced silence and still returned to the fight. That's not weakness, that's the deepest form of strength. The kind that doesn't come from never falling, but from always rising. From rebuilding, from saying, "This hurt me, but it didn't finish me." And the more you walk through your storms, the more you learn. Strength isn't found, it's earned. It's okay if you've doubted yourself. Everyone does. Strength isn't about never feeling weak. It's about choosing to act anyway, to move anyway, to love anyway, even when fear is loud, even when your hands are shaking, even when your hope feels distant. Strength says, I don't have to feel ready to keep going. It trusts that momentum will return, that courage will catch up, that if you can just take one more step, clarity will come. You've been stronger than you know, and you still are. Every time you've said no to quitting, every time you've carried on when no one else was watching, that was strength. Every boundary you've set, every hard conversation you didn't run from, every emotion you've let yourself feel without drowning in it, that was strength. Maybe no one gave you a trophy for it. Maybe no one noticed, but that doesn't make it any less real. And if you're standing in a place right now where everything feels heavy, where you're tempted to walk away from something that matters, pause. Because you might be closer than you think, and you might be about to meet the strongest version of yourself yet. The truth is, most people never meet their deepest strength because they don't stay long enough in the fire to discover it. They assume pain means something is wrong. That struggle means they're not cut out for it. But sometimes the struggle is the training ground. The pressure is the test. The fire is the place where all the old parts of you are burned away, not to destroy you, but to reveal the unshakable core beneath. What if the version of you had been waiting for the resilient, grounded, fearless version isn't somewhere far away? What if they're already inside you, waiting to be activated by resistance? What if the hardship you're facing now is exactly what will bring them to the surface? Your greatest power is not in your ability to avoid pain. It's in your ability to withstand it, to move through it, to let it refine you instead of define you. And when you do, something changes, not just in your circumstances, but in you. You begin to see yourself differently. You stop underestimating your capacity. You stop giving up so easily. You stop mistaking discomfort for danger. You begin to realize, if I survive that, then I can survive this. There is more strength in you than you've been taught to believe, and the only way you'll truly discover it is to keep going, not when it's easy, not when you feel good, but now, when it's messy, when it's uncertain, when quitting is the most convenient option. This is the moment. This is the fire. And you're strong enough to walk through it. Most people don't stop because they're lazy. They don't stop because they're weak. They don't stop because they're incapable. No, most people stop because they're afraid. Because something didn't go the way they planned, and suddenly, the doubts grew louder than the desire. They stopped because the effort stopped feeling exciting and started to feel repetitive, draining, even lonely. Because they were sold a vision of success that left out the struggle. Because they were never taught that everything worthwhile has a cost, and most of that cost is internal. They stop because they look around and see others who seem to be moving faster. People who are younger, smarter, luckier. People who got the results they wanted in half the time. And without even realizing it, they begin to shrink. They start to believe the voice that says, "You're behind, you're not enough, it's already too late." So they slow down, they hesitate, they walk away, not because their dream was impossible, but because they stopped believing it was possible for them. And here's the hardest part. Quitting often feels logical, justified, sensible. There's always a good excuse to stop, always a reason to walk away. You're tired. It's not working. It costs too much. It hurts too much. You've done enough. You can always try again later. And the more you say it, the more it sounds like truth. But deep down, something inside you always knows, this isn't about logic. This is about fear. This is about fatigue. This is about the slow, silent temptation to settle, to retreat, to let go of what could be just to escape what is hard right now. But what if you didn't stop? What if, instead of shrinking, you expanded? What if you looked your fear in the eye and said, "You don't get to decide who I become"? What if you chose to believe that your process was valid, even if it doesn't look like anyone else's? That your pace was enough, even if it's slower than others expect? What if the very thing that makes most people quit is what makes you rise? You're not like most people. If you were, you wouldn't be here. Still listening, still trying, still holding the dream, even if your hands are tired. Most people let their disappointment define them. They get hurt and never try again. But you have a decision to make. Will you let this hard moment build your character or bury your calling? Will you take your pain and turn it into something useful, or will you let it silence your potential? The difference between those who make it and those who don't is not found in natural talent or perfect timing, it's in their relationship to pain. Their relationship to failure. Their ability to keep moving forward when everything inside them wants to stop. And that's something you can choose. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be fearless. You don't need to know exactly how it will all work out. You just need to stay in the process longer than the part of you that wants to quit. Yes, it will get hard. Yes, some days it won't make sense. But if you keep showing up, if you keep learning, if you stay committed not to the outcome, but to the effort, you'll create momentum. And momentum is powerful. It's the quiet force that separates those who talk from those who transform. Understand this. The hardest part is not the beginning, it's the middle. The part where you've done the work, but haven't seen the reward. The part where you're no longer fueled by excitement, but by discipline. The part where you question everything, and the only thing keeping you going is the decision not to give up. That's the gap most people never cross. That's where they pull back. That's where they tell themselves, maybe it's not meant to be. But not meant to be is often just a story we tell ourselves to justify giving up before the breakthrough. You won't be like most people, not because you're lucky, not because you're better, but because you'll choose differently. You'll choose to see discomfort as part of growth. You'll choose to show up on the days when it feels pointless. You'll choose to hold on longer than your fear tells you is possible. And because of that choice, you'll become someone most people never get to be, uncheckable. Your greatness is not in a perfect plan. It's in your ability to keep walking forward when everything says stop. Your power is not in never falling. It's in rising every single time. You don't need to win today. You don't need to finish. You just need to continue. And that's something most people will never do, but you will. Setbacks have a strange way of convincing us that we've failed, that we've lost ground, that we've moved backward. But what if a setback isn't the opposite of progress? What if it's part of it? What if the delay, the failure, the heartbreak, the rejection, what if it's all raw material for something greater, not punishment for getting it wrong? Too many people experience failure and decide that means they've reached their limit. But what if it's the exact opposite? What if failure is simply a mirror showing you what still needs to grow and an invitation to rise with more wisdom, more resilience, more fire? We are taught to avoid failure at all costs, to treat it as the end. But if you study the lives of the most successful people on the planet, leaders, athletes, creators, visionaries, you'll find something in common. Setbacks didn't stop them, they shaped them. They didn't let failure tell them they weren't worthy. They let it teach them where they weren't ready yet, and then they went back to work. They didn't collapse into shame. They studied what broke. They adjusted. They used the pain as information, not identity. The truth is, most of the growth you'll experience won't happen while you're winning. It will happen in the moments after you fall. Because that's when you're most awake, most honest, most open, after the plans break. After the ego shatters, that's when you stop pretending and start listening. That's when you become dangerous, not because you've avoided pain, but because you've learned how to turn pain into fuel. You weren't meant to be perfect. You were meant to be powerful. And power isn't built through ease. It's forged in friction. It's shaped by resistance. And every time life throws a brick wall in your path, you get to decide, is this wall here to block me or to make me stronger for what's ahead? Setbacks teach you to question not your worth, but your approach. They show you what needs refinement, what still needs time, what still needs courage. And more than anything, they ask you a very simple question. Now that it's harder, will you still continue? Most people only move forward when the path is smooth, but the strongest people, they find a way to keep going even through the rubble. They don't wait for the perfect moments, they build in the chaos. They build with the pieces they have, even if it's not what they imagined. That's the power of turning setbacks into fuel. It doesn't just get you past this challenge. It transforms who you become for the next one. Every mistake you've made, every door that's closed, every plan that's unraveled, it's not the end of your story. It's part of the scaffolding that will hold your future success. And not just success in the traditional sense, but the kind of success that's rooted in truth, in earned confidence, in unshakable self-trust. That kind of strength isn't handed to you. It's carved out in the moments when most people walk away. You will not always feel brave when setbacks come. You may feel frustrated, embarrassed, even hopeless. That's okay. Strength isn't about pretending to be unfazed. It's about choosing not to let the setback define your next move. It's about sitting in the ashes long enough to understand what burned and why, then rising, not as who you were, but as someone wiser, stronger, clearer. Imagine if every failure in your life so far was secretly a lesson in disguise. Imagine if every detour was actually redirection. Imagine if every time something fell apart, It was making space for something more aligned, more powerful, more you. The only thing you ever really lose when you fail is the illusion of control. And that's a gift, because when you let go of the fantasy that things should always go smoothly, you make room for what's real: grit, flexibility, creativity, fire. So don't run from your setbacks. Don't hide them. Use them. Let them remind you of how badly you want this. Let them sharpen you. Let them challenge your ego, but strengthen your soul. Let them strip away what was never built to last. And then, let them light a fire under your next step. You are not behind because you've failed. You are not broken because you've struggled. You are in the process. You are being shaped. You are still in the fight. And the people who go the farthest are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who fall, learn, and refuse to stay down. The next time life knocks you back, ask yourself, what can I learn? What can I change? And how can I rise stronger, sharper, steadier than before? Because you can. You absolutely can. That's the power you hold every time you fall. You get to choose how you rise. No one claps for you in the beginning. No one celebrates your 4 a.m. wake-ups, your hours of study, your lonely nights grinding away at something that may never work. There's no fanfare when you say no to comfort, so you can stay committed. No spotlight when you're failing silently, learning privately, growing painfully. But that is where everything meaningful begins, in the dark, in the unseen. In the quiet space where discipline is forged, not because the world is watching, but because you've decided who you want to become. It's tempting to believe that greatness only counts once it's recognized, that progress only matters if it's visible, that your effort is only real if it gets results right away. But that's a lie. The most powerful transformations happen in silence, before anyone believes in you, before anyone notices. When all you have is the vision in your head and the decision in your heart to keep going no matter what. The dark seasons, the ones without validation, without feedback, without a finish line, are where your foundation is built. It's where you train your mind to trust effort over outcome. Where you teach your heart to show up even when it's tired. It's where your soul learns that purpose doesn't always feel good, but it's always worth it. The dark is not punishment, it's preparation. And what you build there, no one can take from you. You learn things in the dark you'd never learn in the light. You learn to separate your identity from your performance. You learn to move without applause. You learn to find meaning in the process itself, not because it's easy, but because it matters. In the dark, there's no one to impress, no image to protect. There's only the work, the discipline, the choice to keep going when your motivation disappears. That's the part no one sees, but it's the part that defines everything. When your goal is still far away and your progress feels invisible, that's when most people give up. They assume nothing is happening. They confuse silence with stagnation. But silence can be sacred. It can be the soil in which your deepest growth takes root. You don't need applause right now. You need consistency. You don't need a big moment. You need momentum. You need to trust that every rep, every word, every tiny decision is stacking up even if no one sees it yet. Ask yourself, what are you building when no one is watching? What are you choosing when no one is keeping score? That is your character. That is your legacy. Not the highlight reel, but the parts you never post. Not the wins, but the discipline behind them. Not the performance, but the preparation. Some of the strongest people you know became that way, not in the spotlight but in the silence. In the gym alone, in the studio before sunrise. At the desk when everyone else had gone to bed, they chose to stay, to keep showing up. To pull themselves into the work even when the world wasn't clapping. And eventually, the world noticed, but by then, they didn't need the world's validation, because they had already become who they were meant to be in the dark. What you build in the dark is what will carry you through the light. If your confidence is built only on results, it will break the moment things go wrong. But if your confidence is built on character, on the choices you've made when no one was looking, then it will hold steady no matter the outcome. That's the kind of strength you're building right now. So if you feel alone in your effort, good. That means you're in the process. That means you're not waiting for the world to believe in you. You're becoming someone who doesn't need external validation to stay committed. That's rare. That's powerful. That's what creates real impact. And one day, when the results come, when people finally see the success, you'll know something they don't. You'll know the price. The quiet hours, the hidden sacrifices, the fear you faced alone. The doubts you pushed through, and you'll realize the success isn't the moment you were seen. The success was the moment you kept going even when no one was watching. Because that's where you became unstoppable. It's easy to forget what you're fighting for when you're buried in the details of today. When your to-do list is endless, when your energy is low, when the pressure mounts and the progress feels painfully slow. In those moments, it's tempting to question the point of it all, to look at your effort and wonder, is this even worth it? But that question only feels heavy when you lose sight of what you're building. Because you're not just fighting for a task, a title, or a temporary win, you're fighting for a future. For a version of you that looks back one day and says, "Thank you for not quitting when it would have been easier to walk away." The truth is, your future is not built in giant leaps. It's built in the choices you make when no one's watching, in the habits you form when no one is rewarding you, in the battles you fight inside yourself over doubt, distraction, fear. Every act of discipline is a brick, every moment of courage a beam. Every time you say, "I'll try again," even with shaking hands, you are placing another stone in the foundation of a future that only you can see. That future, it needs you, not the version of you that waits for perfect timing or external motivation. The version of you that's in this moment right now, tired, maybe uncertain, but still standing. That's who builds futures. That's who writes stories worth telling. That's who crosses finish lines and inspires others to start their own race. You have to remember, the discomfort of today is nothing compared to the regret of abandoning your potential. The fatigue of effort is temporary, but the pain of knowing you have gone further and chose not to is a burden that stays. So when the process feels thankless, when your vision seems too far away to matter, ask yourself, what will my future self thank me for? Will they thank you for choosing growth over comfort, for pushing through the hard days, for doing the inner work even when no one else understood? Or will they look back and see the moment you decided the price was too high and settled for less than you were capable of? You're not just fighting for goals. You're fighting for impact, for peace, for freedom, for the ability to wake up and know that you honored your potential. You're fighting for the kind of life where you don't have to pretend to be someone else, where you don't live in survival mode, but in alignment. That kind of life is not given. It's earned, with every act of resistance against distraction, with every day you don't give in to the lie that maybe this isn't for me, with every hour spent becoming not just achieving. And make no mistake, your future self will remember. They will remember how you kept going through heartbreak, how you rebuilt after failure, how you stayed kind even when the world wasn't. They will carry the strength you forged in this season, the one where things didn't come easy, the one where you had to create belief from scratch, the one where you were the only one who saw what you were fighting for. That strength, it never leaves you. It becomes the foundation of how you live, how you lead, how you love. Because once you've built yourself in the dark, no amount of light can shake you. You become anchored not in ego, but in endurance, not in appearance, but in authenticity. So if you feel tired, good, it means you're working. If you feel stretched, good, it means you're growing. If you feel alone, good, it means you're ahead of the crowd. You are not falling behind, you are building ahead, laying down roots that no one can see yet, but one day they'll bear fruit that everyone will notice. The question is not how fast will it come. The question is, will you still be standing when it does? Will you have stayed long enough in the process to see the future that's trying to meet you? You're not fighting for today's applause. You're fighting for a life you won't have to escape from. For mornings filled with clarity, for nights without regret, for relationships built on truth, for a legacy that outlives your fears. That's the future, and it's not a fantasy. It's being built right now with every single time you choose to keep going. So no, don't give up, not because today is easy, but because tomorrow is watching. You may be exhausted, you may be discouraged, you may have taken hits that no one knows about. Life may have knocked the wind out of you, pushed you to your knees, made you question everything. But listen to me carefully. If you are still breathing, if your heart is still beating, if you still have the tiniest ember of desire inside you, then this is not the end. This moment, right now, is not where your story closes. It's where it shifts, where it deepens, where you rise, not because everything is okay, but because you've decided you are not done yet. Endings are seductive, They offer relief. They whisper to you, "It's easier if you let go." And maybe it is. Maybe quitting would ease the pressure for a while. But that relief comes at a cost, because what you abandon today might have been the turning point tomorrow. What you label as an ending might have been a door disguised as disappointment. So no, don't turn away just yet. Not now. Not when you've come this far. Not when there's still fight in you, even if it's faint. The end is not defined by failure. The end is defined by giving up on yourself. And as long as you refuse to do that, this is not your end, it's your becoming. Because becoming is messy. It's hard. It asks more from you than you thought you had. But it also reveals what you didn't know you could carry, what you didn't know you could survive. You are not where you started. You've grown. Quietly, steadily, painfully you've evolved. You may not have the medals to prove it, but you have the scars, and those scars, they're proof that you showed up, that you didn't walk away, that when life tried to break you, you learned how to bend instead. That matters. Even if no one else sees it, you should. You may not feel strong, you may not feel certain, but strength isn't a feeling, it's a decision. It's the choice to keep moving forward, to keep trusting that something on the other side of this pain is waiting for you. Maybe not what you expected, maybe not what you thought you wanted, but something better, something more aligned. Something that requires you to become the version of yourself that can receive it. This is not the end. This is the beginning of your most authentic chapter yet. The chapter where you stop living for approval. The chapter where you stop abandoning yourself to keep the peace. The chapter where you look in the mirror and finally see someone worth fighting for, not because they're perfect, but because they're still here. The world doesn't need a perfect you. It needs a present you, a grounded you, a relentless you. Someone who dares to rise when they have every excuse to stay down. Someone who chooses to build when it's easier to escape. Someone who understands that endings are often illusions sometimes. What looks like a dead end is actually the beginning of a brand new road. So take a breath, look around. Maybe you're not where you wanted to be, but you're not where you were either. You're in the middle. And the middle is hard, but the middle is where resilience is born. It's where identity is tested. It's where the old you dies and the new you begins to emerge. There's still time. Time to become. Time to rebuild. Time to redefine what success means to you. Time to write the story you've always wanted to live, not in one grand gesture, but in the tiny, unglamorous decision to not give up. Let this be your line in the sand. The moment you stop looking backward and start claiming what's still ahead, you've carried enough regret. Enough shame, enough doubt. It's time to carry faith. It's time to carry vision. It's time to carry yourself not perfectly, but fully, not fearfully, but boldly. Because this is not the end, it never was. It's the start of who you were always meant to be.